The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply. That was a quote from Nathan Rothschild. You see, the Rothschild family has impacted how markets are shaped, how financial policies are made, and even how entire nations operate. Things that impact us to this day. The Rothschild family was so powerful at a point that no politician would dare to make a decision without their approval. Now, many of you already know that the Rothschilds are a rich banking dynasty. However, there's a good chance that you're underestimating the significance of their role in shaping our history. I mean, Nathan Rothschild himself said, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England." It just goes to show that he knew very early on that money was the thing that made the world go around, and that politicians and monarchies have much less influence than they think. Nathan Rothschild was just one of the 5 heads of the Rothschild family branches, each having a very strong influence over their respective countries' financial systems. From helping defeat Napoleon to spreading the seeds of Industrial Revolution, the Rothschilds are undeniably one of the most powerful families in history. Now, our story begins with Mayer Amschel Rothschild. He was a man of humble origins. However, he was really smart and very hardworking. He was born in 1744 in Frankfurt's Judengasse. This narrow lane wasn't just an address, it was a world unto itself. Crammed within its walls lived over 3,000 Jewish residents, their lives in constant negotiation between survival and dignity. That area was tough, it was overcrowded, it was full of discrimination. Jewish people could not leave at night on Sundays or on Christian holidays. They were barred from public gardens, coffee shops, and other places that Christians frequented. Even basic social interaction was limited because there was a ban on groups larger than 2. I mean, it was a constant reminder of their outsider status. Life for Mayer would have turned out very different while living in Judengasse. However, things changed for him very unexpectedly when his parents died. You see, Mayer was originally intending to become a rabbi. It's what his family wanted him to do. However, his parents' death forced him to give up on his studies to becoming a rabbi and instead taking up a position as an apprentice in a banking house. There, Mayer was introduced to all things finance. In particular, he learned about rare coins from ancient civilizations like Rome, Persia, and the Byzantine Empire. These were highly coveted by European elites, a realization that would help him out later a lot. Now, in this banking house, one of his first jobs was sorting coins acquired through Frankfurt's semi-annual trade fairs, which attracted buyers and sellers from all over the region. By the time he was 19, Mayer gained a lot of experience and he was equipped with the knowledge of the latest financial practices. He then returned to Frankfurt to join his father's trading business, working alongside his brothers. He then became a dealer in rare coins and he quickly found a lot of success in that area. Now, this did not go unnoticed by the Crown Prince Wilhelm of Hesse. The Crown Prince was so impressed with Mayer that he was made a court factor. Now, a court factor was a title given to a Jewish financier under the employ of a noble. This was huge, it was groundbreaking for Mayer. Finally, he had the opportunity to escape his life from Judengasse and expand his business. He laid the foundation for the Rothschild family's future success right here. As time passed by, Mayer's businesses grew. He rode the momentum of his success and sent his sons to open branches in different states. To all of them, he gave 2 important instructions. The first was to prioritize doing business with reigning houses, and the second was to father as many sons as possible to take care of the family's business affairs abroad. Now look, Mayer's strategy seems a bit strange, but sending his sons to different regions wasn't just about business expansion, it was about mitigation of risk. By spreading their roots across the continent, the Rothschilds wouldn't be beholden to the whims of any single ruler or economic upheaval. I mean, this is an ideal example of portfolio diversification if you think about it. Also, by currying the favor of the ruling houses of the regions where he or his sons operated, he ensured that his family would not just gain wealthy clients, but also a valuable layer of political protection. By the early 1800s, Mayer's sons had established themselves in 5 key cities: Naples, Vienna, Paris, London, and Frankfurt. Together, these 5 linked branches became in effect the first bank to transcend borders. Now, by acting as financiers to multiple European powers, The Rothschilds held a unique position of neutrality. They could leverage their political clout to influence political decisions and international relations. All of this was done subtly, without arousing any kind of suspicion. For the Rothschilds, as their clients increased, so did the number of financial services that they offered. They initially started as dealers in luxury items and traders in coins and commercial papers. However, eventually, Mayer and his sons became prominent bankers. For them, wars provided the best opportunities. The French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars between 1792 and 1815 proved especially profitable for them. The Rothschilds provided loans to warring princes. They engaged in smuggling and legal trading of essential products like wheat, cotton, colonial produce, and arms, all of which facilitated international payments between the British Isles and the continent despite Napoleon's efforts to block British trade. The strategy was simple yet effective. By funding both sides, the Rothschilds ensured that regardless of the war's outcome, they would be the ones profiting. So on one side you had Jacob Rothschild based in Paris, funding Napoleon Bonaparte's war efforts. On the other side you had his brother, Nathan Rothschild, stationed in London, financing the British side, led by Lord Wellington. Ultimately though, as the war progressed, it became very evident that Britain's victory would be more profitable for the Rothschilds' financial interests. And so, Jacob Rothschild began limiting his funds available to the Napoleonic army. And at the same time, on the British side, Nathan Rothschild started increasing his funding efforts, ensuring Lord Wellington had the necessary financial resources to continue the fight. And so, because of one family, the fate of the entire European continent would be impacted. Nathan, being the financial genius that he was, also made plans to buy up British bonds very early in the war. Now, he had a lot of foresight because you see, earlier on in the war, Napoleon had a number of victories, and this caused a market panic, which in turn caused a dip in bond prices. Nathan took this opportunity to buy up the bonds at a very steep discount. And so, once the news of Britain's success at Waterloo reached London, he sold these bonds at a significantly higher price, reaping enormous profits. Now you see, his strategy was very well thought out. He invested in his own private network of couriers to deliver him updates about the war before his competitors. It was such an efficient system that he came to know of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo a whole day before the British government did. Now, this is all very good for the Rothschilds, but it did lead to a backlash, one that would haunt the Rothschilds nearly a century later. You see, Napoleon had been particularly kind to the Jewish community, giving them equal rights and ending centuries-old laws of discrimination. So, for a prominent Jewish family to support his enemies was not very well taken by the French people. Now, the Rothschilds may have just seen this as just good business, but for others it was seen as a sign of betrayal. Especially, the French intellectuals began associating the Rothschilds with capitalism, transnationalism, and economic inequality. This sentiment grew as rapid industrialization and social change fueled anxieties about class struggle and nationalism in France. The Rothschilds symbolized wealth and power even beyond France's national borders. Soon, this became a focal point for societal frustrations and the rising anti-Semitic rhetoric. They became the scapegoat for everything wrong with modern finance and global influence. This sentiment would eventually be exploited in the decades ahead by various nationalist governments. Despite all of this, the Rothschilds' fortunes were actually on a stellar rise. They adapted by shifting focus to government securities, insurance stocks, and shares of industrial companies. They also invested heavily in railways, coal, ironworking, metallurgical industries, thereby giving a significant boost to Europe's industrial revolution. Mayer Amschel Rothschild and his sons were creating a mighty financial empire. However, Mayer had to come to terms with the fact that he might not live for a very long time. He had to make arrangements to secure his wealth and influence he spent a lifetime accumulating and building. He left very specific instructions for his heirs on how to handle the family finances. His will stated that only male descendants could inherit the family's wealth. Now, this led to a lot of inter-family marriages. I mean, on the level of the Habsburgs. Between 1824 and 1877, there were 36 marriages amongst Mayer Rothschild's male descendants, and 30 of them were within the same family, with like first cousins or second cousins. Only 4 Rothschild's women and 2 men married partners outside of the family. I mean, if nothing else, it did help to keep the wealth and the power consolidated. Now, it wasn't just interfamily marriages, there was another factor that allowed the family to keep control over their fortune. The Rothschilds didn't tie any of their wealth to tangible assets that could be easily seized, such as real estate or gold. Instead, they invested in highly liquid instruments such as stocks, bonds, and debts. So if any anti-Semitic violence broke out, let's face it, it happened a lot, it made no difference to the Rothschilds. This way, there was nothing for an angry mob to destroy or take away or some greedy noble to seize. This ended up being a very, very smart decision for the Rothschilds. Now, Mayer's son proved to be just as smart as he was. The Rothschilds family continued to see success even after his generation. The most successful of them was Nathan Rothschild, overseeing the family's business in London. By far, his biggest accomplishment happened in 1835. He managed to secure the rights to mercury mines in Spain. This ended up giving the family nearly a worldwide monopoly on this critical element that was used to refine gold and silver. Nathan also focused on building relationships with those in power. Because of this, he ended up managing to get the rights to refine gold and silver for the Bank of England and the Royal Mint. This was huge. The resulting wealth and the growing fortune was not wasted on excessive luxury, but it was reinvested in a very smart way. The family's banking group kept expanding, particularly in the global trade of oil and non-ferrous metals. They became the largest shareholders of companies such as Rio Tinto, De Beer, and later on the Royal Dutch Shell. By the mid-1800s, the family's wealth and influence was staggering. They were a force to be reckoned with, wielding power and influence that spanned continents and industries. The family's influence extended far beyond finance. Their influence went into culture and politics and the arts as well. They were avid collectors, being patrons of many great artists and art curators. Some family members with scientific interests instead sought out zoological and horticultural specimens. They funded many expeditions to remote parts of the world as well. Their efforts and their money greatly contributed to the knowledge of scientists and art historians worldwide. These collections that the Rothschilds accumulated would later be used to enrich libraries, galleries, and museums, many of which still stand today. Now, the family had so much wealth and influence that entire nations could be saved with their aid. Many countries would even wait for the Rothschilds' approvals before making any kind of critical decision. For instance, following France's defeat by Prussia in 1871, it was the Rothschilds that provided the French government with 2 massive loans to keep it afloat. Meanwhile, in London, they provided the British government with £4 million on very short notice, therefore enabling them to become the principal stockholder in the Suez Canal Company. This strategic move made the Suez Canal a critical line of communication in the British Empire. It significantly reduced voyage time from London to India from weeks to mere days, and therefore boosted British trade. It was also the Rothschilds' money that helped enable the scramble for Africa. For instance, they funded activities of individuals such as Cecil Rhodes. With the help of Rothschilds' money, Cecil Rhodes amassed a fortune from the diamond rush in southern Africa. And in this example, it wasn't just Cecil Rhodes who was profiting, because it greatly helped the family-controlled De Beers company increase their profits. Now, another man that they helped to rise to prominence was John D. Rockefeller. The United States in the 19th century was a nation that was rapidly developing. The Rothschilds family supported the works of many American industrialists, including the Rockefellers. The Rothschilds owned a governing share at the National City Bank of Cleveland. Through this, they provided crucial financing to Rockefeller as he began consolidating the oil refinery business. This financial support played a pivotal role in the formation and expansion of Standard Oil. While the firm soon became notorious for its monopolistic practices, it nevertheless made Rockefeller one of the richest people in the world. Further facilitating Rockefeller's rise was Jacob Schiff. Schiff had strong ties to the Rothschild family through his birth in the Rothschild Green Shield House in Frankfurt. He advised Rockefeller on strategic business moves. Notably, Schiff played a key role in developing the rebate deals that Rockefeller secured from railroads transporting oil from competitors. These rebates gave Standard Oil a significant competitive advantage and further solidified its dominance in the industry. So yeah, being even remotely associated with the Rothschilds, like Jacob Schiff, was a huge advantage, and there was a lot of opportunity to profit. There's another interesting hypothesis that it may have been the Rothschilds' influence that prompted the British government to agree to the creation of a state of Israel. The theory comes from the fact that the Balfour Declaration of 1917 was actually addressed to Lionel Walter Rothschild. This was a public statement by Britain expressing support for the establishment of a Jewish state and was meant to be sent to Lionel as a figurehead of the British Jewish community. What is certainly true is that the family had been donating heavily to the cause of a Jewish state for decades. They actively supported and funded Jewish settlement during the 19th and the early 20th centuries. These efforts provided substantial to the movement that ultimately led to the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Now, on the brighter side, the Rothschilds also made it a point to be heavily engaged in philanthropy. In Frankfurt alone, for instance, they managed as many as 30 charitable foundations. These included public libraries, orphanages, hospitals, homes for the elderly, and educational funds. It's no surprise that given their contributions, the Rothschilds were highly honored. Mayer's 5 sons all became barons of the Austrian Empire. A Rothschild was also the first Jewish person to enter the British Parliament, and another was the first to be elevated to British peerage. The head of the British branch of the family was often regarded as the unofficial leader of British Jewry. Now, the Rothschilds' fortune and prestige grew with each generation for a while, and it seemed like everything was going really well, but eventually the sun had to set. Just like their rise, the Rothschilds' decline was also surprisingly rapid. Wars, politics, and internal rivalries took their toll over the next century. The Naples branch of the Rothschilds Bank was the first to close its door in 1863. The trouble for Naples branch began when the revolution broke out and Italian nationalists under Giuseppe Garibaldi captured Naples on September 7, 1860. The family's international ties put them at odds with the new government, and only 3 years after Italy's unification, they were forced to close all their operation in Naples. Now, next to follow was the original family branch in Frankfurt. Ironically, it was the lack of male heirs that forced its closure in 1901. A few decades later, the Vienna branch would meet an even more tragic end. Following the rise of the Nazis and their takeover of Austria, their family members were forced to flee. Those that remained, like Louise Nathaniel de Rothschild, were imprisoned and only released after a large ransom. All their possessions, homes, businesses, artworks were all seized. The family branch in Germany occupied France, too, would suffer. The Vichy government would seize their properties during this war. However, miraculously, their business survived the war, but it didn't survive the French politics. Under the rule of the socialist government, the Paris Bank was nationalized in 1982. This effectively ended the Rothschilds' presence in Paris banking. The ghost of Napoleon perhaps finally took his revenge. So by now, all of the 5 original branches of the Rothschilds Bank was closed except that of London. Now, despite all the setbacks, the Rothschilds have remained one of the most influential families in the world. In 2008, the Rothschilds family holdings were reorganized under a single company, and that was a shareholder of Paris Orleans based in France. It marked the first time that the family businesses were unified after roughly 2 centuries. Today, their holdings span financial services, real estate, mining, energy, and charitable work. Additionally, the family owns more than 24 wineries worldwide. Now, most of the family members are either directly employed by these corporations or invested in operations that continue to generate wealth for the family. Interestingly enough, one of the companies that still remains till today is one of the first banks that was founded by Nathan Rothschild. That bank continues to report healthy financials. In 2022, it reported a $3.2 billion in revenue and $650 million in net income, with $109 billion in assets under management, and that's doing pretty well. Altogether, the family's holdings combined are an estimated total of $1.2 trillion. Despite all the setbacks, they still remain one of the world's richest families. Now, while the true extent of their power is still debated by many historians, there's no denying that the Rothschilds family left an indelible mark on our society, both economically and politically. Their success is a reminder of just how one seemingly minor event can dramatically alter the history of the world. I mean, think about it. If Mayer Rothschild's parents had not died early, he would have never entered the world of finance. Imagine if Mayer had become a rabbi just as his parents had originally intended for him to be. In this scenario, Britain's victory over Napoleon could be widely different. I mean, France could have emerged as the dominant power. Many prominent figures in history that we know about today could probably be forgotten if it hadn't been for the Rothschilds' contributions. So yeah, there's no denying, whether good or bad, that the Rothschilds impacted the world significantly. By the way, if you stayed on till the very end, I'd love it if you could leave an upside down smile emoji in the comments. I'd love to see how many of you stayed on till the very end. And if you did, I'm very, very grateful. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.